Hello everyone, it's a pleasure to be here today. And we want to talk today about how and why should we approach our designs from a bit more feminist perspective. First things first, we know that the world is not perfect. I could have put on this picture plenty of different examples to that, and I think you can all remember some examples from previous speakers. But the interesting thing here is what is our role as designers and how are we trying to make this world at least a tiny bit better by our everyday tasks and what we do. And today we are trying to discuss and to find our ways of designing for a better world. And even though through our attempts and our approaches and new methodologies, we're getting better slowly, we still get some, being honest, shitty products that we cannot use and some outcomes, at least in my experience, when I designed things, I thought it was good, then I launched it and ouch. So I hope that not everybody had this experience, but I think somewhere in our CVs there is this one project anyways. So we propose that we start by asking, what is this better world that we are trying to make, and how can we design it? We believe that it starts with our approach to design and the values that we are putting into our work. And hopefully working clicker. And we think that this beautiful new world that we are trying to make starts with seeing everyone. And by everyone, it means not just the people that will be directly interacting with our products, but families of these people, and maybe people who will just pass them by. And this clicker will work someday. This is what modern feminism can help us do. Modern feminism is definitely not about just gender. It is about seeing people and users, not just somebody who has a goal to achieve with our systems. These are embodied human beings with their own experiences, with their own backgrounds, and by acknowledging our similarities and differences, we can start seeing everybody in not just our own perspective, but how people and our users truly see the world, behave with our designs, and live. And still, sometimes everyone still means one, and some problems are very gendered. Even when we try to say that, okay, we have humanism, why do we want to still focus on women? Unfortunately, it's not always the case, and some problems just come into your life because you have a female body. And our first case study covers how feminist approach to design can help to enhance user experience in women's fashion e-commerce.
Thank you. All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Urszula Kulon. I'm the co-presenter that is on the program. I will be talking about how we can enhance the overall user experience in women's fashion e-commerce specifically. However, about the scalability of this, I will talk in a moment. All right, so firstly, maybe it's good to talk what's fashion e-commerce. Well, fashion e-commerce is just a very fancy word for buying clothes online. That's what it is. And it's a huge industry. So during the last 5 years, nowadays, 1/5 of all clothing worldwide is bought online, which is a huge number. Now, who's the target or the main user or customer of this industry? It's women. As you can see, the women fashion e-commerce is more than double of men's. Now, it's worth to remember that when we talk about online services like fashion e-commerce, women are not only customers, they're also users. Now, are they satisfied users? Many previous speakers asked you to raise your hand if something happened to you. I will not ask you that. I will ask for people to raise the hand who it hasn't happened to. Yeah, there you go. That would be easier and save you the effort. So basically, as we know, shopping online for clothing is quite a challenging experience, and it can be a quite challenging experience literally for every woman out there. Now, so is this. So once we find something that truly works for us, we often buy many pieces of it, you know, living in this thought that a catch like that may never happen for a long time again. Well, it comes from the fact that shopping for clothing online is an incredibly unsure experience, and it's very unreliable. It's actually based by research. It's called a high-risk purchase or high-risk procedure. Now, today I will focus on how we maybe can make it less unreliable and how we can make it less distorting. And we're going to have a look at some specific aspects. All right, can we do better? Yeah, well, once we've seen and realized the scale of the problem, we know that we in fact must do better. All right, because of the high unsureness of the fashion e-commerce, it's not just an inconvenience, it really affects women users in many, many different ways, also as people. All right, very quickly, I will introduce you to the research that I did. All right, so maybe the results could be a bit clearer. All right, I conducted a bigger study that consisted of 3 parts. The first part was the online survey, during which women had to choose their website of their choice, and then they were presented with 20 statements. Some of them you can see on the screen, and they were simply asked to check if they agree or not. Then, based on the previous results, I designed the user probes. User probes are kind of, let's say, worksheets that really allow you to work with your participants in a more flexible way. And those probes were around 6 pages, and they dive into inclusivity issues as well as practical issues and the mental impact, because this is the aspects we're going to talk about today a little bit, is inclusivity, representation, and the body image perception, okay? That's the aspects we're going to focus more. Lastly, there was a co-design session. Actually, there were quite a few. We had 9 women coming to those sessions, and we asked them to assess their already existing solutions. They could draw on them, they could comment on them, and then lastly, after discussion also in between the groups, they were asked to sketch their enhanced fashion e-commerce website. Now, let's go into why. Why is the change needed? Well, empirically, we kind of all know why the topic's important, because we've all experienced many issues with this industry and the negative impact on women. But here I will talk about the whys that derive from the study specifically. So firstly, the mental and emotional toll. So in the research, women were asked to describe their feelings and how they feel or what they think once they do a successful or unsuccessful purchase. So basically, the clothing fits or it doesn't fit, let's say. Now, what we see on the left is, yes, your left, is the positive purchase scenario. And what we can see when it comes to emotions is mostly the emotions of lack and happiness, and also a boost of confidence, which kind of confirms the fact that actually clothing can affect how you feel and what you think about yourself. But I think this is something that we all already know. Now, what's a bit more interesting, but however concerning on the right, are the emotions that women feel and what they think in case of unsuccessful purchase. It's usually anger or frustration backed up, very often connected with self-deprecating feelings. What it means, you can see the quotes, maybe they will give you a little bit more insight on what it means. Basically, it means that when women make a successful purchase, they usually credit it to luck. They say, oh, it was so lucky, I'm so excited. They don't give any credit to themselves for assessing the functionalities, for making good choice. While when the purchase is unsuccessful, they usually blame themselves. So there is a bit of a paradox here. They usually tend to blame themselves or the parts of the body if they don't fit, or any case of that. This is a very concerning part, and is also backed by other studies that are already present. Oh, sorry. Apart from mental and emotional toll that affects us as women users or women customers of fashion e-commerce, there is body image distortion, which means basically we can not be sure how we look like, what we are, because of how different clothing and sizing makes us feel or makes us perceive each other. And then the environmental impact. So a very interesting thing to notice there was that participants were very aware of the environmental impact their purchases have, and very often they really wanted to make it better. They were aware of that fact that, well, I do in fact order a lot of things and I don't feel good about it. And actually it added on top of that many other things that I mentioned before. They were really aware of that the change would be needed. Oops, too fast click. Now, what do we need? All right, what do we need to improve or maybe even innovate or fix? So we're going to go through 3 very broad notions that emerged from the study, since we are not that good on time today. So firstly, participants reported lack of body type, skin color, and age inclusivity on the already existing solutions. They also pointed out something that is called or biased or superficial inclusivity that they did not approve of. For example, presenting dark-skinned women only in brighter colors. So basically, using inclusivity where the e-commerce see fit. Secondly was unrelatable modeling. So the whole modeling tactics like unnatural poses or clothing manipulations, there was no side view, no close-up photos. They all make women not only not seen, but also they kind of hinder them from assessing practically if the clothing would fit on them. Lastly, a huge kind of category of a problem, which is unclear sizing. Under unclear sizing, there could be pages upon pages of what's in there. It's ununified sizing. It's unclear nomenclature of the sizing. It's lack of availability or a wrong communication of what sizes is what line means what. Again, hinders very much actually the process of purchase and its sureness. All right, now why and what? Now, let's maybe get onto more positive notes if we can know how to fix it. All right, so out of this research, I derived 25 design implications that are very actionable steps that one could apply onto a fashion e-commerce website that could generally enhance a user experience for women. Now, these 25 design implications fell into 6 categories, and the categories you can see on the slide. Well, all of them are backed by participants' input and ideas, and some of those specific implications I will present on the prototype. I implemented them onto, okay? Now, let's see how we're on time. Okay, does it work? Okay, all right, so this is the website or the user interface I created to implement some of those design implications. Now, it may look like it's just a regular e-commerce website that you probably have seen everywhere. They all look very similar. Now, it's actually not true. So, for example, here we can create our own avatar that supports our realistic body image and how we can perceive ourselves and perceive our clothing. Don't worry, we'll go back up. It presents also visually the representation and inclusivity, okay? There is more than one model presenting each garment. There is, yeah, this is too fast, but let's keep up. There is a very good sizing comparison where you can compare your sizing to a model. So for example, the model size or the model's measurements are not only, oh, you know, usually it's model, it's 175 and she's wearing an S. Well, thank you. It says literally nothing to me. I'm also 175 and I'm not wearing an S and I don't know how to compare that. So for example, on this website, you could compare your measurements to exact measurements of the model, as well as you could access different lines of clothing, not only curve or petite or tall or short. All right, there could be lines for women with bigger chests, with smaller chests, with bigger bellies, bigger bums or smaller bums, because there are so many different body types that are not taken into account when it comes to fashion e-commerce in general. And it's very important because if it's not done, then women simply don't have a choice. Where's my clicker? All right, here you can have a look, maybe in more stable view. There is a screenshot of 2 parts of this website. There is also a part, notify me of a bargain, that facilitates not only inclusivity that we think of. We think inclusivity is only about body type, color, and age, but it's also about finances. So if you want to have a look later at the prototype, just let me know. There are also places that that enhance financial inclusivity. So for example, when usually you can notify me of a size, here you can notify me of a bargain. If the price goes low, notify me, yeah? If I want to see how the trousers look like, I don't want to see them like on a Zara website when the model is upside down. I want to see it, according to the participants, on a lady that sits, that walks in a natural position so that I can assess how it actually looks like. All right, so now we come to a conclusion of this case, all right? What can be taken from here is that if we can provide women users with higher usability and clear and helpful sizing tactics, diversity in modeling, and honest and helpful modeling tactics, we can combine it with honest and unbiased inclusivity. Then we get to reduce a mental toll that the fashion e-commerce usage takes on women, make shopping a less body-distorting experience. We can subsequently lower return rates and reduce the carbon footprint. And what's crucial to notice here, in my opinion, is that the representation or body image are not empty virtues that are nowadays a little bit overused or misunderstood. They will, if we apply those tactics, they will actually have a result in overall enhance of user experience and usability of the website. That actually gives a mutual benefit, not only to women users, but also to the companies, which is actually a very rare scenario. Like a win-win is a very rare scenario in those cases. So I feel like we need to look at those values more as some elusive values, but more something as we can really focus and we should really focus on as designers to create a better tomorrow. So that's from me. And now we're going to switch to Margot's side. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Now we'll ask ourselves questions, is this approach scalable? So mine was a bit more down to earth, was something like every day, maybe not even a necessity for some people. Now let's talk about something on a bigger scale.
And now we'll talk a bit about smart city technology for women's safety. I really shall hope that not everybody experienced this fear of walking outside and being terrified to death that somebody is following you or that something terrible can happen, though the statistics unfortunately proves us otherwise. Every third woman in the world has experienced harassment, and by harassment, it's not clearly specified what type, but just so you know, harassment goes from just verbal assault to death case scenarios. And this statistics is terrifying and horrible. Of course, it differs around the world, and in one places, it's pretty safe just to walk outside on your own, yet in others, there are shuttle buses for women and girls, so they just can commute on their own without being chaperoned. And with technology, we are trying to solve this issue. These pictures are taken by me in Dubai, one of the safest world cities, and yet they still have women's wagons, like cars in the underground. And at first I thought that, well, maybe it's just about religion or culture, but of course with my scientific curiosity I walked into like all genders one, and never have I ever been stared at like that, so it took me exactly 1 minute to start walking to the women's one. And still, even if it's safe conceptually that, yeah, men are not even officially allowed to talk to you without your consent, it doesn't always mean that you feel like that and that you feel comfortable. And when we are, as women, offered technologies like alarm buttons, there are cases when they were implemented, for example, in India, but women ended up not using them because they didn't know what will happen. So in the way how technology is designed, when it misses out on an actual experience of being a woman and feeling unsafe, we can end up with technocratic solutions or solutions that doesn't take into account that it's not only about solving the problem when the danger is in the process of happening. So we promote practicing feminism in the design process from the beginning to not end up in this situation. These are feminist HCI qualities introduced by Shavan Barzel that help you to think differently, starting from thinking broader about who your users are, inviting users to participate, advocating your values, considering what is your product is surrounded by, not just one action and one result. seeing people as embodied creatures and knowing your own biases. And with a growing number of cities around the world, now would be the time to start thinking about that so we do not end up with having cities as, for example, current cities were designed when women were chaperoned everywhere and nobody thought of this scenario at all. So maybe if we're thinking about the future, we can start thinking of how this future would look like and how we want it to look like. So how can we do better? First, in my research, we started with analyzing not just what we are solving, but the whole context, the problems and existing strategies, and how it impacts the solutions. Talking to 26 participants first in different mixed groups from around the world, and then specifically for 3 cities, Berlin, Cairo, and Melbourne, where smart city initiatives are already implemented. We organize our studies as co-design approach, so we are already putting in the values of participation, values of embodiment, that women can think not in the perfect role scenario, but associate their stories and wishes for solutions with their own stories and their own experiences and what is important for their specific cities. Then, what should be changed? As it turned out, there are overarching problems around the world, like unsolicited attention or fear to not being able to protect oneself. But when it comes down to every specific city, the problems are sometimes so narrow that people even just say that we want it to be solved around underground stations, because for us this is the problem and we cannot commute anyhow else. So local context is always, it is important and decisive factor whether the solution will work. And now we are moving to how. Women reported that they want solutions to be for, like, they propose solutions and we analyzed it and derived this 4 requirements basically, that being preventive measures, so nothing happens, reactive measures, so that if something happens, somebody helps you, reporting if the situation has already occurred. Probably you don't want to relive it again in your head and while talking to a policeman, and systematic change, that the whole cities and approach to organizing safety in society might be slightly different. I will not cover this in detail, but just it also is important to hear and see the values that people bring in, because when talking about technologies that can help to organize this, in Berlin people were completely against surveillance, while for example in Cairo women wanted for harassers, for people who assault them verbally, to at least be registered somewhere so they can file a report. So these aspects are extremely important, and this is what context is about. So as a takeaway, it's always important to aim to understand the real situation and to see it as people first. So to wrap it up, we looked at 2 different cases, and it doesn't matter whether you design a little web page or a big web page, or when you're designing a city, because you're not designing just a tool or a solution, you're designing the whole experience around it. And we know that e-commerce usability is extremely high at the moment, but the experience itself is still unpleasant. And being a bit more feminist and looking at our participants broader, encouraging this participation, advocating our values through design, considering infrastructure around our products, facilitating user embodiment, and acknowledging own biases can help us as designers to make our creations feminist by design. Thank you for your attention.
So thank you, girls, for this very interesting presentation. Yeah, do you have any questions for them?
So I saw your mock-up for the fashion
Website, yeah.
website, and I was just thinking maybe this could be a good thing where the 2 sides, the business and the consumers, can win, because all of those characteristics that you were pointing out, how they could be yeah, financial sensitive and also sensitive to their specific body characteristics. This could be maybe part of their customization that you can do at once. Like I saw on the mock-up that you can have this on the page, but I was just thinking, have you guys maybe considered about these aspects being a one-time thing that you can maybe then customize in the single page? Because maybe, you know, conditions change, but that you can do that as one time as a user for the service, and at the same time you're encouraging users to sign up for the fashion shop or whatever. Yeah, I just thought about that and
Sure.
wanted to ask you how you thought about that too.
No, that's very interesting. I mean, I think it's definitely an option. I just feel like, I mean, in my ideal world, I would like the websites to provide this inclusivity so that you never have to personalize everything each time you do it. So actually that you couldn't see it because we're very limited in time, we're also two people, is that it would be possible to have your avatar with your exact measurements, and then you can change it and save it for later. And then you can see the clothing on yourself as it realistically would look like. So I feel like this one was one of the most often mentioned actually features, and I think that it kind of answers this because I think this is the place where they could customize themselves like for once, because we change, of course, and that's the place. In my ideal world, I wouldn't like every woman to customize everything every single time unless they really need to.
Yeah, but it does happen with shoes.
Yes,
for instance,
for example,
right?
yeah, exactly.
Like the white kind, you always have to look extra for it.
Yes, so that's what I'm saying. I think it really depends on also on the item, because when we talk about the fashion e-commerce, it's everything from trousers, dresses, to shoes, to accessories, to underwear, and they all have incredibly different characteristics. And that's actually also one of the design implications, that every single, like different types of garments and different types of accessories or shoes should have different characteristics and measurements. So in this fact, I think, yes, it would be nice if it was possible, but of course it's not nowadays, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Other questions?
Thank you very much for your presentation. I thought that was very interesting, and I think I never thought about it that way. But I was wondering, since you mentioned with the fashion website that it's basically a win-win situation from the business side and the design side, have you actually calculated how much plus they would make on the business side? Because I was just thinking that it's so expensive to have all the models and all the clothing, and did you have a partner that you could actually sell that idea to, or that is working on something like that? Because I think it's very convenient.
Mm-hmm. That's a very practical question that you're asking. So no, I haven't calculated it. In fact, if you wanted to calculate it, to enter the realistic data of real companies is incredibly hard, because I tried. And it's a good question. Now, I think what at least emerges from my research, and I think other research can actually support it, is that maybe, of course, this is higher in cost to hire more than one model or more than even two models to show one garment. But then it shows that once we do a successful purchase on one website, and it's actually good, because generally the experience is so unreliable, we tend to incredibly stick to this one website, because we're like, this is where last time it was perfect. So I feel like in the longer run, it would definitely benefit the e-commerce. I kind of laugh that probably the only party in this situation that would lose is the delivery companies, because then there wouldn't be that many returns and sending back and forth. However, calculating it, I'm not able to do it, and I didn't do it, but I think it's a very practical way to approach it. And if a company wanted to, let's say, apply to those, that's what they would have to do, because let's be honest here, at the end of the day, why is this experience so unreliable? Usually at the end of the day, everything comes down to money. So that's why the experience is how it is, so yeah.
I think we have time for one last question.
Nice to meet you. May I ask you why the people in Tehran take only black clothes? I remember words always black and many colors between. The mode is so often always black. Do you know this?
I know a saying that architects always wear black. This phrase I don't know. I'm from Bauhaus, so they are always wearing black.
Okay, so yeah, then thank you for you guys. I want to show you your picture as well. That's your picture. If you want, you can also show it to the audience. Yeah, so thank you, girls.